Hello class, this is Mr. Kreisler, and today we're going to be learning about simplifying and GCF. Since some of you have been having trouble with simplifying of radicals, we're going to review how to get to that part where we can simplify them, and this will lead into our GCF lesson. So first things first, let's review prime numbers. So a prime number is a number that can't be divided and broken down into any other whole number without it being a decimal, unless you divide by that same number. So what would be an example of a number like that in case you forgot? And our smallest prime number is 2. This is because you can't divide 2 by any number without getting a decimal unless it's a 1 or a 2. Same thing can be said about 3. 1 isn't prime because if you divide 1 by 1, it's still 1. So it doesn't change the number and doesn't break it down. Our next prime number is 5. Let's see if you remember what the next prime after 5 is. Okay, so after 5 we have 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, 23, 29, and there's a bunch of more if we want to skip to something that's really high. 113, if you remember from your previous worksheet that I gave you, because 113 is prime and you can simplify any further. So using our prime numbers, we're going to break down these 3 examples. I'll do the first one with you, and then you guys try it after this. So 24, let's see. If I want to break it down, I have to start with the smallest prime, which is a 2. Can I divide 24 by 2? Yes, I get 12. Now, how do I break down 12? Well, I could divide 12 by 4, 6. I can even try a different prime number 3. But the best way to do it, to keep it organized, is keep using the smallest prime possible until it doesn't work anymore. So let's divide by 2. We get 6. 2 still works, so we're going to divide by 2 again, and 6 becomes 3. We know we have broken down our number into all the primes because we end with a prime, and 3 is prime, so we're done. So if I wanted to write out all the numbers that are prime making up 24, I would say 24 would be 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. So let's try 30. 30 I can break down by 2, and I get 15. I can't divide 15 by 2 anymore, so I move to the next prime, which is 3. And 15 divided by 3 would be 5. 5 is a prime number, and we are done. So let's write out our primes that multiply to 30. So 2 times 3 times 5. Now you might be wondering, Mr. Kreisler, being like, why am I writing out like this? Well, this is also a way of checking yourself. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times the 5 equals 30. So if you break this down properly, when you multiply all the primes back, you should get the original number. That's just a little trick to help you guys out. Try breaking down 36 on your own. All right, so to break down 36, we're going to start with a 2, which becomes 18. And 18 divided by 2 is 9. Can't divide 9 by 2, so let's try 3. So 9 divided by 3 is 3. And we ended with a prime, so we're done. So the primes that make up 36 are 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 3 is 9, and 9 times 4 gives us back that 36. Pause the video if you want, otherwise I am moving forward. So you might be wondering, Mr. Kreisler, what was the whole point of that? How does that help me find out what GCFs and simplifying? Well, let's look at this. I want to now find the GCF of these numbers. The trick is to first break it down to primes, which we have already done. So let's do that again. Let's just rewrite it out. So 24 is 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. 30 is 2 times 3 times 5. Now, 36, on the other hand, we said is 2 times 2 times 3 and times 3. Now that we all have these listed out, let's see what primes they have in common and how many of that prime do they have in common. So 24, we have 1, 2 here. 30 has 1, 2. And 36 also has a 2. Since they all share this 1, 2, it is part of the GCF. But we're looking for the greatest common factor, or the GCF. So let's see if there's a bigger number we can do. All right, let's see. 24 has another 2. Uh-oh, there's no more 2's in 30, though there is a 2 in 36. So since all three don't share that extra prime, we know this one doesn't work. We already said 2 doesn't work, so why would it work again? All right, let's try the 3. So 24 has a 3. 30 has a 3. 36 also has a 3. So that means they also all share a 3 in common. Well, what we're going to do here is we're going to multiply all the prime numbers that they have in common. And remember, it's not that they all have 2's in common. It's they all have 1 2 in common. They all have 1 3 in common. Because 36 has 2 3's that are prime, that make it up, and 2 2's. But 30 only has 1 2 and 1 3. And 24 has 3 2's and 1 3. So we care about the 1 2 they all share and the 1 3 they all share. So 2 times 3 gives us 6, which means the greatest common factor of 24, 30, and 36 is 6. Now that we know the GCF, we can simply figure out how to simplify this. So when you're simplifying, we want to find a number that we can divide all three of these by. So let's take that 6. So 24 divided by 6 is 4. And then we have this 30 here, but let's be honest, it's a negative 30. And it's negative 30i even. So let's say negative 30i divided by 6 equals negative 5i. And that bottom denominator, 36 divided by 6, which is equal to 6. Now that we reduced it, let's all just put it properly where they will go. So we said 24 divided by 6 is a 4. And negative 30i divided by 6 is negative 5i. And 36 divided by 6 gives us 6. So if we wanted to simplify this, we would say the GCF and the number that it can be simplified by is 6. And then this would be our final simplest answer. Take a pause if you need to check it out. Otherwise, I'm going to move forward. So let's break these numbers down into the primes. Now you might be looking at number 4 and being like, well, Mr. Kreisler, I can't break this down. 3 is prime. What do I do? And I'm going to look at you and be like, good, you caught the trick. 3 is prime, so we're not going to do anything. So what are the prime numbers that make up 3? It's just 3. Let's try the next one, 24. Let's break down the 24. So 24 divided by 2 is 12. We can divide that 12 by 2, which gives us a 6. And we can divide 6 by 2, which gives us a 3, which is a final prime. And we're done. So 24 is made up of about 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. Now, let's look at 48. For those of you who are good with multiplication, you'll notice that to get from 24 to 48, we just multiply by 2. So just thinking your head and skip ahead, we would know that the prime numbers that make up 48 are the same numbers that are going to make up 24, except we're going to have an extra 2. If you can't imagine that or see that, let's just break it down. So 48 divided by 2 is 24. And then since we have 24, we should see this exact same pattern. So 24 divided by 2, 12. 12 divided by 2 is 6. And 6 divided by 2 is 3. So the primes that make up 48 is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. A lot of 2's going on here. Now that we've broken down every number into their primes, except for 3, which is prime, so we can just kind of let it chill. Let's write out the list like we did in our last example. So 3 is just 3. 24 is 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. And 48 is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. So what number do they all share? Well, I think it becomes quite obvious since 3 is only a 3, and they all do have a 3 in common. So the GCF has to be a 3. Sometimes it will not be this easy, but in this case, we got lucky. And why is that? Well, because Mr. Kreisler invented the problem. So let's simplify this. Take the GCF, which we now know is 3, and take each one of these numbers and divide it by 3. So 3 divided by 3 is a 1. A positive 24i divided by 3 will become a positive 8i, and a positive 48 divided by 3 equals a positive 16. So what will be our final reduced answer? Well, 3 divided by 3 is 1. Positive 24 divided by 3 is positive 8i. And 48 divided by 3 is that positive 16. So this would be our simplest form. Just like that. All right, I hope this lesson has helped you guys with simplifying and finding the GCF. Tomorrow's lesson will be about GCF. And for tonight, I'm going to ask you to do this problem all by yourself and see how you manage. Take a picture of it, send it to me, and please remember this lesson had the guided notes attached to it. All right, I hope you guys are all doing well during the quarantine. Have a good night. Mr. Kreisler is out.